Nigerian politician, would you tell me that they don't have skeletons in their cupboards? You get what I'm saying? So what exactly is he holding PDP? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. A political party, as we know, should be bigger than any individual. Yes, we know that at some point in sustaining the People's Democratic Party, Wike played a major role in financing the party and all whatnot. But right now, it is obvious that he is not at par with the party. So they have about 12 governors, if I'm not mistaken. They have about 12 governors. So why can't you just call this man's bluff and then, expel him from the party? Really? Because every Nigerian on the street right now, because if the PDP rose into any election, that alone, this act alone, or this inactiveness alone, questions their credibility. Not just as a party, but even as a party to rule Nigeria. Because if you can't take hard decisions, how would you take major decisions that, touch on the lives of millions of Nigerians? You get what I'm saying? So, for me, back to what we said earlier on, Wike for me, and if you look at it again, in fact, there are so many things coming to my head right now. As a party, it was agreed that, look, the presidency was going to be zoned to the south. As a matter of fact, all governors of the southern extraction had a meeting in Delta State, and we saw a major stakeholder at the time renege on that agreement in the person of Okowa to run as vice president. Now, people said a whole lot about the fact that Wike also wanted to, wanted the vice presidential slot and all whatnot. But bottom line is that an agreement was. Some people broke an agreement. You get Atiku came into the picture when he was not supposed to. I think you get. So these are all of the causes. So the root causes in the PDP are so deep that it's going to be hard for, and unfortunately for all of us who are Democrats in this country. Now, unfortunately, not because the APC is doing anything bad. It is not in my place to say, because what the administration of APC is affecting Nigerians in different ways, okay? But it's unfortunate that we just might be going into the 2027 election with just one party.
Well, it depends on if the coalition falls through the crack, if it doesn't hold up to something tangible enough to convince Nigerians that, that's the big question. Now, I'm glad that you fired back that question, because when we talk about it, it's almost like an imaginary friend that little children have, like this imaginary friend. But then they're having pockets of meetings. It's not crystal clear just yet what is going to crystallize into, if I would use that word. But, there's just here and there a bit of headlines, bit of story about a coalition. You're not even sure who the people and what kind of talks and conversation they're having. At a time when it feels like the other camp and the ruling party has been very strategic to telling you, we are coming back in 2027. Door to door for Tinubu is already happening. Why is the coalition not putting its head out for Nigerians to know what to expect?
The only coalition that will work in...
Permit me to just run for a quick break.
Right. My head, Ogalalo. Better medicine. They knock down malaria. Take them.
Hello, my name is Kimberly.
Thank you, Galuta. I don't...
Hello, my name is Kimberly Nwachukwu. I'm the host of Hard Facts, and I bring you the biggest stories driving conversation every weekday here on 95.1 Nigeria Info Hard Fact Show. I love to get your opinion and conjectures, but the facts you cannot dispute here on Hard Facts. Join me and let's talk.
Trust me, people may not like that, but it's somebody, Nasser El-Rufai, somebody I really admire.
Okay.
I have my personal reasons for that, you get. But then, as somebody who grew up in Kaduna Sef, you can tell. I mean, he changed the face of Kaduna. Well,
he
not
did?
Yes, he did. He did.
He
did. No.
If you talk about Kaduna North, yes, some infrastructural work happened. But the sad thing with his administration is like we talk more of the insecurity in Kaduna and the north-south, dichotomy and all those issues.
Somebody who kept saying, because I recall that before he came into office, he kept hinging on the fact that, look, Kaduna is divided, and when he came in, Kaduna was even more divided than ever. You get so that for me was a major minus in his administration, and it's a serious dent on whatever legacy he may have built in Kaduna. You get so at the end of the day, you ask yourself what's coalition, because when you're looking at El-Rufai as an individual politically, I don't think he has that spread. Okay, I don't think he has that spread.
National spread. It might be a regional force. Does he have?
Well, even regionally, people in the north, there's a way he thinks that people aren't so comfortable with. Maybe too elitist, you get, and maybe too progressive for their liking. You get what I'm saying? And that, for a lot of Northerners, I dare say that quite a number of them aren't comfortable with him. And then you look at an Atiku Abubakar. Come on. Too many people, right now, a lot of people look at you as the spoiler for 2023 elections. Because if you were not there, perhaps we would have had I would have had a Peter Obi presidency. Now I'm speaking on the side of people who supported other parties other than the APC. You get?
Yeah.
They hold Atiku responsible for the failure of Peter Obi emerging as president of this country. Perhaps if they had joined forces as a PDP and thrown their support behind a Peter Obi, or maybe even a Nyesom Wike, the story would have been different today. You get? But so when you look at all of that, you put all of that together, you discover that this is a coalition that may not necessarily work. The only person who I would say maybe has a bit of political national appeal in a sense is Rotimi Amechi, because these are the names we're hearing, and these are people who have been vocal in recent weeks. You get? Now, other than that,
now the fact that you're recent weeks doesn't mean that there's all of a sudden an appeal for that individual, because Nigerians we're not. It's not a case of short-term memory. People remember those who've been in the corridors of power, how they handled power, what they did. And then all of a sudden, if you want to be on the side of the people and talk like the average Nigerian, not a lot of people are going to buy that.
No, somebody like Rotimi Amechi has a bit of popularity in the north. That much I can say. With what he did as Minister of Transport, there were a lot of projects that favored the north. There was a transport university. Even the real thing. He was at the top. And as a matter of fact, at some point, he was even given a chieftaincy title, I think, in Kano, if I'm not mistaken. So, and we saw, for those of us who attended the APC Congress leading up to the presidential election, other than President Bola Tinubu, he was the only other popular candidate. Even from the elections. The voting. So, away from that, the only thing I can say now, Kimberly, honestly, is that if any coalition is to work right now, a Peter Obi, people would want to see a Peter Obi on the ballot paper running up against President Bola Tinubu. That's the only thing that would work. Yeah. Other than that, because if you're talking about 2027, is it an Atiku Abubakar who is still, of course, he has a constitutional right to run for office. He has a constitutional right, but politically, when you look at the political calculation and all of that, is it going to work? Because as it stands right now, the South is supposed to rule for 8 years. Okay, afterwards we'll have the North come back. Even though when we talk about the North, we leave the North Central out of it completely. We're even having this conversation a couple of days ago. We're like, people like Bukola Saraki might never end up being president in this country. If you're from Benue State, it's a no-no.
They feel almost displaced, like just there. You're a part of the North. When you look at the political geography of things, but then when it comes to the real thing,
it's the conversation starts from Northwest, Northeast, and all of that. North Central is we're only going to be looking at places like Niger State. These are the realities of our political system. Unfortunately, these are the realities. And I just want to say the way it is. But for any coalition to work, if you're going into any coalition and then Peter Obi is not in the conversation, because as it stands right now, he's the only other politician apart from President Bola Tinubu who is popular.
Yeah.
People may think that, he's not as popular as he was in 2023. But then if you look at the antecedents or look at the activities of Peter Obi, even after the elections, you discover that he has learnt a thing or two.
Yeah.
He's still making appearances at critical events. He's responding to, issues of when it comes to natural disasters, he's responding. Basically, he's just there in the faces of people. He's trying to connect, build those bridges that President Bola Tinubu had built for years. Will he catch up? I don't know. But in 2027, he should have an opportunity to test that as well. Yeah.
But isn't it curious that we started talking about 2027 election a little early this time around? Because it feels like the last two previous elections, it was a year before the election that, we started saturating the space, social media, conventional media with these kind of talks and conversation. Yeah. But it feels like Kimberly, it came early this time around.
Let's allow. See, we both know that. Kimberly, let's talk real stuff here. Look, we know that the moment an election is contested and won, okay, the conversations for the next election cycle starts immediately.
Wow.
Yes, we may not see it because we're concerned with our daily bread, we are concerned with school fees, paying house rent, promotions, looking for a job and all.
Yeah.
We are preoccupied with all of those. But for those within the political cycle, they know it starts immediately. If you lost an election, you want to realign. You're looking at certain body movement, and then you want to realign and all of that stuff. It starts almost immediately. But I think really what has thrown this conversation open at this point is the early endorsement by the APC endorsing President Tinubu for a second term, so that's just what it is. So I think we just need to start looking at I don't want us to dismiss this. I'm not talking about us right now as media practitioners, but it has everything to do with Nigerians. We don't have to dismiss this and wait until a particular time. And that is why I often ask the question, if the political class already aligning, realigning, and all whatnot, what about the citizens? What are we doing? I'm thinking that by now, we ought to have been on the heels of INEC to start early voter registration.
Oh, yeah.
Because we can't wait until a year to the elections, then we start going through
because they still need to do that, even though they mentioned that we perhaps might not go through the rigor of the whole PVC. It's not something you download, but they need to be that registration.
No, even if we're not going through the stress of the PVC, it should start now.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Now, I'll give you an example, and I'm sure you probably have experienced this. I was in Lagos a couple of I think over a year ago. I had a problem with I misplaced my ATM card of a particular bank, and then I went to that bank to get a new one. So I got to the counter as usual, and I was told to go outside and get my ATM. You get what I'm saying? Go outside and get your ATM. It was just a machine, just like your ATM card. I stood there in less than 15 minutes. I got my ATM. Look, there's nothing I secure or I guard more in my wallet besides my driver's license, like my ATM card. So if I could get my ATM card in less than 15 minutes, Kimberly, there is nothing any INEC official will tell me. Whether you studied under Bill Gates himself, there's nothing you will tell me. Let us start this voter registration, because it's even it really doesn't make sense to me when you have a situation where on the election day there are people who turn 18. You get what I'm saying?
True.
I should be able to get my my voter registration on that day, register online, and participate in the elections as far as I am 18. I'll leave that out. Let's talk about me and you. You know that maybe for you, you're on radio, you run shift, but I don't know how it happens here. But I remember in 2022 thereabout, I asked this question: what are you doing about people who actually have to work on the fields? Journalists, security men, because
essential service providers.
Essential service providers. Because Kimberly, I can tell you, the last time I voted in this country was in 2011. That was the last time I voted. Ever since I started practicing as a journalist, it was all because on that particular day, we go out to the field. You're not going to stay in just one place to cover the elections. You have to go to different places, cover the elections. Perhaps for those of you who work in the studio, you have to come to the studio and stay from morning to monitor the elections, monitoring those, talking to those who are on the field and all of that. What are you doing to cater for this group of people? So these are important conversations we should be having. It's not even the issue of what's this other problem that came up? Voter buying.
Vote buying.
Vote buying. That shouldn't even be the problem. We should be talking about effective voter registration. That is what conversation we should have in. Because whether we like it or not, the politicians are getting ready. They are doing their bit. They are realigning. They are getting to positions where they feel it's going to benefit them at the end of the day. That's the whole conversation about this whole election wicked thing and stuff like that.
Indeed. Well, just before I open up the phone lines, we talked about the coalition, and you did mention quite a number of the names that have popped up in recent times. And it'll be interesting also to know what would define the election this time around. And I'm going to piggyback on this particular story where we're talking about from camp APC, talking about weaponizing poverty, and as based off of what Amici said during his 60th birthday when he talks about being hungry. So the APC has criticized a former Vice President, Atiku Abubakar, a former Transport Minister, Rotimi Amici, and former Kaduna Governor, Nasiru El-Rufai, over their claim that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was weaponizing poverty. The trio had over the weekend made a claim at a public lecture held in Abuja to mark Amici's 60th birthday anniversary. And Felix Muka, in a statement, knocked the three politicians, saying they could not and did not eradicate poverty in their state or the country despite occupying various public offices. And, Amici and his group had said, he said they are losing their grip on the economy, accustomed to fleecing the economy. They are now compelled by Tinubu's unprecedented reform to adapt to a new reality where hard work, productivity and innovation are rewarded. Now, this is a reaction. Even the minister of the FCT yesterday did react to this particular one when the issue of hunger came up, and Amici used his birthday to actually tell a lie, to give the impression, and it was mocking poor people and, just in a way, even poverty generally, by saying someone who's been two-time governor, a minister, would now say he's hungry like every other person. So I'm a little curious, I know you're not a soothsayer, there's no crystal ball in front of you, but it'll be also interesting to look at what are some of the things that will define the election this year. We're going to see more talks about this poverty coming in, or what exactly? Because if you're having someone like Amici say, there's hunger in the land, he's riding on the popular sentiment that a lot of Nigerians have, to saying we're hungry, or the reality of a lot of people beyond the sentiments, the reality of a lot of Nigerians actually talking about the state of the economy and hunger for them.
Look, when it comes to the issue of weaponizing poverty, that has been the culture for a very long time. We
see it even in vote buying.
Exactly. That, of course, transcended into vote buying and all whatnot. So for me, it's actually very insulting when people like this go on public platforms and just throw words around. I remember a couple of years, I think at the start of this administration, when at the height of this fuel subsidy conversation, I remember vividly, former governor of Benue State, Gabriel Soswan, was on a popular TV station and then was talking about the fact that he couldn't afford eggs. When he said that, Kimberly, I was irritated. I felt like using my remote, and I'm saying this from the depth of my heart, I felt like using my remote and throwing it at the television. You get them? That was, even the presenter found that a bit laughable. There are certain illustrations you don't go into because we know, some of us know the assets some of these people have.
I mean, sometimes you just think they're detached from reality.
You get what I'm saying?
People are stupid.
So it's insulting for you to say stuff like that or use illustrations like that. No, we are hungry and all of that. But the unfortunate thing is, Kimberly, across Nigeria, when you travel, just a couple of weeks ago, I was in my village. I went for a burial in my village, and I saw the level of poverty, Kimberly. I saw people selling bags of oranges. We have lots of oranges in my village. Bags of oranges, people are selling it for as less than 1,000 naira. You get what I'm saying? If you're traveling from Kaduna to Abuja, from Abuja to Kaduna, along that expressway, you see a bucket of mangoes that go for less than 300 naira. You get what I'm saying? A basket of mangoes go for 300 naira.
Wow.
These people just want to survive, and we have all it takes. Over the years, we've always had what it takes to improve the lives and living standards of Nigerians. Right now, in all fairness, when you go to the market, because there was a time where the bag of rice was going for over 100,000 naira and all of that. But if you go to the market now, it's a bit less. You're buying bags of rice now for 60-something thousand and all of that. Yes, the prices of these commodities have gone down, but Nigerians still do not have the spending power. That is the problem. The money to buy these things is simply not available.
Not there.
You get what I'm saying? So when the election cycle comes around again, I can bet you, Kimberly, the 5,000 naira that they're paid, we're still going to have it. Civil society organizations.
I doubt if it will be 5,000 naira. You have to factor in inflation. Even they know these things.
See, Kimberly.
But then the danger there is that it's going to be a repeated cycle of just, how would I put it? Because it's definitely going to affect how people vote.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about, look, let's even leave the people alone. Even within the political parties, what happens? We see the exchange of hard currency. We see the exchange of
from the
money.
Congresses
now,
and all of that.
You get what I'm saying? Just for delegates position themselves to enrich, prepare themselves, position themselves to be elected as delegates to some of these elections or congresses and all of that, so they can make money. That is a season, or that's a period where they make a lot of money. So if we have it at that level, what makes you think that by the time we come into, the elections proper, the average Nigerian wouldn't request for a 5,000 naira, a 2,000 naira, a 10,000 naira, as the case may be. So it's just a culture of poverty generally. If the living standards of people improve, then we're going to have other issues to talk about as far as elections are concerned. You get? So, unfortunately, every politician weaponizes, poverty.
Sadly.
A lot of them, at least, I would say.
Sadly. All right. There are indications that a federal government scheme designed to transition Nigerian vehicle transportation service industry away from fossil fuel, petrol, to gas, has encountered a major hitch. Industry stakeholders told, speaking with Financial Vanguard, that the initial enthusiasm that has been overtaken by frustration due to supply shortages and insufficient infrastructure. They said that inadequate refuel facility, gas itself across the country have become, made it quite difficult for these to really expand. And just to save us reading the entire story, is the whole CNG business. We understand that the federal government, at one point, particularly when subsidy was removed and, tax and all of that went up and tariff, and it was one that was really pushed out strongly to say, all right, if you have CNG, if you convert your vehicles, you would pay less and then ride on it for a very long time.
Yeah.
But sadly, they've not been able to expand. And I remember, I think it was last week we were talking about it, and a lot of people registered their frustration with how you have to queue, not enough service. That's what they call them, right? Service centers providers for them at the end of the day. So, it'll be interesting to see how the government will defend this. And maybe they have other plans on how to just work on improving.
You know what I think?
Because all of a sudden it feels like the tempo died.
Yeah.
Even the guys that used to come to the studio and say, we service this, we can help you convert to CNG. Nobody's talking about it anymore.
Yeah. Kimberly, if you ask me, I will tell you that the reason why this whole conversation came up was because I feel, now the intention, as somebody who is a bit close to the system, I would say the intention was noble, because after all, we should have alternative sources of energy, okay? But this is a typical case of putting the cart before the horse, because you cannot roll out a scheme when it depends on major facilities. You get what I'm saying? It should have major facilities, service stations. Yes, Nigerians, at the end of the day, we can be, over the years, how do I put this? I'm looking for the right words to put it. I don't want to say Nigerians are understanding people, but for lack of a better way to put it, let me just frame it that way. As it stands right now, most people are still going to filling stations and buying fuel right now for as much as 900 naira, 910. Sometimes it goes below that. And trust me, if for any reason it goes above 1,000 naira, Nigerians will still go buy. We have bought for 1,000 naira now, haven't we? So, coming up with the whole CNG thing, there were a lot of skepticism. People were skeptical about the situation. And this only goes to prove the skeptics right. You know, it only goes to prove them right. So I think that the federal government, I don't know what their defense will be, but I think they need to come out and really tell Nigerians what the situation is. Because I read through the reports on several media platforms, and I discovered that even nobody can really point a hand at what exactly the problem is.
But one of the areas is that the government is not approving enough licenses for people to open up some of these service centers for people to have their refill.
And you know, it's a very technical.
Indeed.
It's quite technical. You know, so we'll just have to wait. At this point, we just have to hold our horses and just wait to get a response from the federal government, you know. But bottom line is that it just confirms what a lot of Nigerians felt. You know, in some cases, some people felt like, look, this was just a way to distract Nigerians, in a sense, make it seem like you're doing something, whereas in the real sense, you're stalling just to see what happens in the fuel sector. You get, because when you look at the type of cars coming to Nigeria now, how many people can actually afford the vehicles, the CNG vehicles? You get what I'm saying? How many people can afford them? You know, go to all of the car marts you have in Abuja. I can bet you right now that you may not find up to 1,000 cars across all the car marts in Nigeria. I bet you may not find up to 1,000 cars that are strictly CNG vehicles.
No.
So what that tells you is that most of the cars coming into the country are still going to be running on fossil fuel. Yeah. So what are we saying? So I don't know. I almost feel like saying, because forget about this CNG thing. Let's just continue with what we're doing.
I think a lot of people have just decided, you know what, let's just continue what we have.
Yeah.
Because if you're not expanding it, and I know that I can refill here with a struggle, and then I go to the next city, and then it's difficult for me to find a place or two cities afterwards. At one point, you just fall back to your good old petrol and not bother with it. Someone once said, didn't we have at one point when the price of bread was getting expensive during Goodluck's administration, and they started throwing all this idea of cassava bread. It didn't catch on. This one caught on. People loved the idea of it, but sadly, we do not just have either it's a capacity problem or the lack of the will on the part of the government.
It's a capacity problem in part because, first of all, let me even tell you where some of us, how we think about this thing. For a long period of time in this same country, when you look at the power sector, they deal with a lot of gas, to power their turbines and all whatnot. I stand corrected. I'm not an engineer for anyone listening right now. But I think that's what happens. I believe strongly that's what happened. And we've seen cases of where power stations are shut down because there was no supply of gas. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if we probably didn't deal with that issue, we've not dealt with that issue, and we're talking about a wider issue that also affects the lives of people as much as the issue of power. You get? And that's talking about energy for movement and stuff and all whatnot. So it's I feel the government has to go back to the drawing board. I hate using that phrase, but it's what it is. You get? If they are sincere about it, if they are sincere about it, they have to go back to the drawing board, say, okay, these are the errors we have made. I think there's a presidential committee responsible for that. These are the errors we have made. Let's go back, retrace our steps, look at the areas where we can. But as it stands right now, I think the frustration is still going to grow more, or Nigerians will still go to bed with the idea that, look, this was just a hoax. Distract us, and then let everybody get, what's that word now? Adjust to the new fuel regime and all of that. Some of us, Kimberly, we're still, We have to buy our fuel. I'm still on.
Do you have a choice?
I don't have a choice.
All right, let's look at some of the comments we've received so far. And I believe the media can also help our politicians set the right narrative. This idea is that anything goes is vexatious. How the campaign start way before the set time for a particular candidate against the rules, and they're not removed from the race. An opposition holding his party chokehold and yet standing on the platform to campaign for an opponent. Yet it's okay. Well, deliverance is coming, says the Patriot. And Israel says a political party that is bigger than an individual should be able to rise above. Who has the bigger money to bring for us? Okay, quote. I tell a member that it's not the turn of his own for presidency. Atiku claimed in 2023 that he was contesting because Wike refused to allow microzone to the southeast. That's now his claim. What will be his claim for 2027? It is clear that Nasir El-Rufai came with a higher momentum for the coalition, as he's always advocated for a southern replacement for Tinubu. But from when Atiku saw the plan and had rushed down, as he would always do, you can see that the morale of the former Kaduna governor has lowered. Atiku is getting nowhere. He's here again to sabotage the opposition. Peter Obi is the only worries of Tinubu and the APC at the moment, says Israel. And Oludade Abiodun says, good afternoon, Kimberly, and to our guest. I really salute your guest for his comprehensive analysis and unbiased analysis also. Are we still talking about the PDP? To me, I believe PDP allow personal ambition of some selfish interest to kill the party. Amici and El-Rufai are not on the side of the people. They're only being bitter. No one cares. So if at all they contest and win, they cannot do anything different from what we're seeing at this moment. In fact, it might get worse, he said. Good afternoon to our guest. Did I just hear you say Aondona Younger? Did I murder the name? Oh my goodness, I used to listen to him back then in Kaduna. Very nice guy. Hope he will become a regular here. Manjo from Karimajiji. Oh, Manjo, he's still a regular guy here. Maybe not on Nigeria Info, but he does have, a big platform where he's a regular guy also operating. And when he finds the time, he comes around. Let's hear from this caller. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
God bless you. My name is Chinedu. I'm calling from Nassau.
Welcome, Chinedu.
Yes, Mr. Rotimi Ameki is not talking by himself, but he's using by himself to talk. He's talking about Nigeria. Nigeria are hungry, my friend.
Hello? Okay. Hello?
Hello? Hello? Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Hello? Yeah, good afternoon.
Afternoon. Tony from Guarempa.
Tony, I would need to put you on hold for a quick 30 seconds break. Is that okay, or you just call back?
Okay, I can hold on.
All right, thank you very much.
If you don't mind.
Everyone says I'm beautiful and bold. They say I'm fashionable. And to crown it up, very confident. And
this is Nigeria Info.